Hello, Mwanzi. You can call me Billy. I'm a black Indian girl living in Suriname with my parents, and at the time, my grandmother. This happened when I was about 7 years old. I used to share a room with my 14-year-old sister, who we'll call Tiffany. Our room was on the second floor. Now, as a kid, I'd always see things that felt a little off, but I never really thought anything of it until this night. I was asleep on the top bunk. Tiffany was on the bottom. In the middle of the night, I woke up for no reason. I glanced around the room, then looked at the clock. It read 3 a.m. My bed faced a window, and because of the balcony light outside, the curtain was just see-through enough to make out shapes. I was just about to drift back to sleep when I looked over, and I saw it. A small, childlike hand pressed against the window, just resting there behind the curtain. I was petrified. I went to a Christian school, so the first thing I did was hide under my blanket and start praying. I prayed so hard I couldn't even think straight. The next morning, my eyes immediately went to the curtain, but there was no sign of a hand. But here's the thing, we were on the top floor. It was impossible for anyone to be standing outside our window. I never told anyone about what I saw. I was 7, and I knew no one would believe me. That night, I hesitated, but I went to bed anyway. And again, I woke up in the middle of the night. My eyes landed on the window, that same childlike hand, pressed against the glass. Just a hand, no arm, no shadow, just a hand. This time, I whispered, "Tiffany, Tiffany," trying to wake her up, but she didn't move. I lay there, frozen with fear, unable to sleep. I hid under my covers again and prayed to God to please make it go away. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, the sun was shining through the curtains, but I was still shaken. Later that evening, I went to the upstairs living room where my grandmother stayed. She was the only person I felt I could talk to. At first, she was skeptical, but the more I told her, the more seriously she listened. I've always been a grandma's girl. It was easy to tell her everything. She handed me a small Bible and told me to keep it under my pillow. I didn't want to tell my parents. I knew they wouldn't believe me. And when I finally did, I was right. They laughed and told me it was just a dream, my imagination. That night, I fell asleep with the Bible still under my pillow, and for the first time, I slept peacefully. No hand, no waking up. Now that I'm older, I've learned more about the legends in my country, and I realized that hand I saw, it was most likely a bakru, a small, childlike creature from our folklore. It has all the same characteristics of a child, but isn't. And if you think that was the end of my experience with the paranormal, think again. This was just the beginning. My name is Carol, and I want to share with you a true story that has haunted me since 2010, when I was just 14 years old. Back then, I lived in a quiet apartment complex called Questons Avenue. It had 5 buildings. I lived in the B building on the first floor. Directly across from my building was the D building, where I used to attend tuition classes. And just beside the D building, there was a small, obscure security door. It was always closed. I had never seen anyone use it. It felt like it had been forgotten. By the residents, by the guards, by everyone. My daily routine was uneventful. I'd leave for class around 4:30 p.m., and by 6:30, I'd be on my way home. The walk from my building to the D building took about 20 minutes, time I usually spent daydreaming or chatting with friends. One evening, after class, my friend and I walked out together. We were laughing, sharing snacks she'd brought along, but she soon had to leave for another class, and I was left alone, slowly finishing the last few bites on my way home. That's when I noticed him, a man, tall, gaunt, and unnerving, emerging from that strange security door, the one no one ever used. His movements were off, like he was struggling to control his own body. His limbs twitched, and his walk was very jerky. Each stride looked stranger than the last, and he was looking down at his feet the whole time, almost as if he knew that he was walking in a strange manner. But then he looked up, and his eyes met mine. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. His face was unsettling. His eyes were too wide apart, and his jaw hung at a crooked angle, like it wasn't aligned with the rest of his face. He stared at me. I tried to ignore him, focused on my snack, but then he moved. He didn't just walk toward me, he lurched, and his slow stagger turned into a predatory stride. Before I could react, he was right behind me, yanking my bag with so much force it nearly pulled me off balance. I spun around. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. Up close, he was horrifying. Those same wide, bulging eyes, that distorted jaw, and a twisted grin full of something I can only describe as malice.
"Do you have any money in your bag?"
he asked. His voice was a low, gravelly rasp that made my skin crawl.
No, I don't.
I stammered, my hands shaking. He didn't blink. He stared, deep and cold. Then his eyes darted to the nearby benches, where a few people had started watching us. Their concerned expressions seemed to break the spell for a moment. That's when he laughed, but not like a normal person. It was a hollow, mocking laugh, like something pretending to sound human.
"Why are you so scared?"
That was enough for me. I yanked my bag from his grip and ran. I ran as fast as I could back to my building, all the way to my front door. When I got home, I was out of breath and terrified. I told my parents everything. They were horrified and told me that if I ever saw the man again, I was to call them immediately. They wouldn't hesitate to report him, but I never saw him again. A few days later, one of my friends said she saw the same man I described. She thought he might have been drunk, considering there were a few liquor shops nearby. She said that after I left, his face turned pale and he stumbled back to that same security door, the one he came out of, and then vanished. To this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted, but that image of his face, that moment he grabbed my bag, still lingers in my mind. This happened about a month ago when my siblings and I arrived in Mexico to visit family. It was only our 4th day there when we visited my step-grandmother's family in a town called San Pedro. It was beautiful. There was a big park in the center of town, and my step-grandmother's family owned a tiny restaurant right across from it. I asked my grandpa if we could go buy a volleyball. He said